Got it docked just in time, and my phone is ringing. Hang on a second here, y'all. Let's see who's calling us at 5 p.m. Thank you for calling Kerbal Space Academy. How may I help you?
Hey, it's Bigelow Aerospace. How you doing?
Hey, Bigelow Aerospace. How are y'all doing?
Good. How are you? Good.
I am doing fantastically. Are y'all all good to go? You have the stream up? Are you seeing the Canadarm shenanigans that are occurring right now?
Oh, we've been enjoying that for the past few minutes. Very entertaining.
As it turns out, the Canadarm is pretty complicated, and when you have to control it by clicking a little arrow one servo at a time, things become difficult sometimes, as it turns out.
Yeah, and it seems like you did it about 100 times faster than they do it in real life.
We're just playing video games here. That's all we're doing. I have to say, thank y'all so much for joining me for the stream. Everybody, we've got experts from Bigelow Aerospace on the line right now to talk to us about the beam experiment. The beam is the Bigelow Expandable Activity Module that's actually installed on the International Space Station in real life right now. So everybody's reminding me to say the word expand. Yes, the Expandable Activity Module. But you'll see, Bigelow, you'll see in my chat, I know you guys can see the chat, you'll see all these emotes that are reminding me to not say inflate. Because I always say inflate, and it's not inflatable, it's not a balloon, it's not like a clown thing that somebody has blown up and put on the side of the ISS. It's actually an expandable activity module, right?
That's right, you got it.
Chat, can we hear Bigelow okay? Let's see here. I'm going to make sure we've got all the volumes for Bigelow. And Bigelow, do y'all want to go around and do some introductions, tell us your titles, and say what your name is?
Sure.
Go for it.
Hey, I'll start it out. My name is Lisa Falk, and I'm the Deputy Program Manager for BEAM.
Excellent. Lisa, Deputy Program Manager. Fantastic.
My name is Earl Hahn, and I'm a engineer / beam expert / yeah.
He did a whole bunch of stuff for Beam. It's
A whole
hard
bunch
to
of
say
stuff.
exactly what. My name is Brandon Bechtel. I was one of the lead structural designers for Beam.
Excellent. Excellent. So we've got the Program Manager, we've got an engineer, we've got a lead structural designer, right? I think those are the three things we've got. Lisa, Brendan, and Eric. Earl. I said, why did I say Eric? Oh my gosh, Earl. I know your name's Earl. Ah, yes. Well, again, thank y'all so much for joining us. Welcome to Kerbal Space Academy. Y'all know me, I'm Das. Everybody in chat, say hi to Bigelow Aerospace and thank them for joining us on the show here. So, what I'm supposed to be doing, I am supposed to be using my Canadarm here to grapple a Bigelow Expandable Activity Module and install it on my International Space Station here, which I've built in KSP. And y'all know KSP. Beam or Bigelow, anybody play KSP? Do y'all know KSP?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Will you play KSP?
Well, so I used to play KSP all the time in college, and then after I graduated, I got really busy. But I did start playing again a few days ago, just because I knew I was going to be on this.
Nice.
And I how much I missed it. So.
We have had time ever since.
Excellent. So you used to play with video game spacecraft, but then you started working on real-world space things. And I'm not going to begrudge you that use of your time. I appreciate you doing real space stuff for us.
Oh yeah, can't say which one's better though.
Clearly the real world stuff is better. I'm going to give you that one. I'll answer that one for you. So do y'all want to do like we've already kind of done an introduction. I kind of talked to the stream about what Beam was, right? The Expandable Activity Module, and we were talking about, wow, we want to have space to do things in space, which is the thing that we keep tripping all over, right? It's like, well, when it gets to space, it's got more space, but then when it's on the ground, it doesn't have as much space because it's not expanded, right? Do y'all want to give like a brief explanation of why it's a good idea to expand things in space? Why would we want to make something small on the ground and ship it up to space and then make it bigger? What does that get us? Why does Bigelow spend their time looking into stuff like that?
Well, actually, the view that you've got up on your screen right now is a really good method for describing why this is such a great concept. Currently, the volumes that you get in space are very similar. They're basically aluminum cans that all get linked together. And that's good, but the problem is you can't really get anything else afterwards. That volume is what it is once it goes up there. So the benefit of something that's expandable is that you can pack it down into a very nice, compact, small lightweight package, and a key word there is lightweight, so therefore very, very much cheaper. And then once it gets up there, you get a huge multiplier on the amount of volume that you get for the crew to use. So it's a lot cheaper, and you get a whole ton more space, and it just becomes a very efficient method.
And you say cheaper, you don't just mean cheaper to build the module, you mean cheaper to actually deliver it to space, right? Because it costs money to deliver mass to space, as it turns out. We've got to blow up rocket fuel, throw it out the back of a rocket, and push it into orbit. And the less mass that we have to pull into orbit, the less rocket fuel, the less rocket that we need to get there. So it's cheaper to deliver to orbit, which is an important thing for getting more and more things to orbit, right?
Absolutely, you got it.
Excellente. And we can actually see, you were saying like aluminum cans, that's hilarious. I've actually got a part in the game that I'll show you that is an aluminum can. I drink a lot of Dr. Pepper, as it turns out. So I've got a little module that is an aluminum can that looks like a Dr. Pepper can. But when we've got modules on the ISS, everything currently on the ISS that I've got on my screen is the size that it was when it was shipped up, either on top of a Russian rocket or in the cargo bay of the space shuttle, right? There's nothing on the space station right now. Maybe you could argue the solar arrays got a little bit bigger, but there's no pressurized habitable space on the space station that was sent up in a smaller package and then expanded, right? Beam is the first time that that's happened.
Right, absolutely the first time that humans will interact with it. Now, we have had 2 previous missions where we've demonstrated the capability of an expandable spacecraft to get into orbit and expand successfully. But yeah, this will be the first time that we get a crew to actually go inside and experience what it's like inside an expandable habitat.
Excellent, excellent. Let me hop down to the vehicle assembly building. My Canadarm's a little bit out of a position. We'll have to deal with that. We will totally have to deal with that when we get another thing up here. But we've been setting up for the stream for the past couple days, and in our little vehicle assembly building here, we've created a Dragon delivery craft, a Dragon cargo vessel, and we've got a Falcon 9 that it sits on top of, and we've actually got in there one of our little modules. So let's hop over to this, load up our Dragon, and show the trunk off right quick. So here I've got my Dragon kind of built, and the cool thing about this is that the Dragon has a trunk on it. And in the trunk of the Dragon right now, we've got a little bit of an expandable module. And you're like, all right, Das, that just looks like something that has some little yellow handles on it. What this is a special mod. Viewers, this is something that Rover Dude, who's one of the most awesomest modders for the KSP community, made for us over the last couple days. He made us a little module that is the Expandable Activity Module. Go ahead.
That's awesome. We're just loving this thing. This is so cool.
So we've got this little module, and you can see it actually fits in the trunk of the Dragon. We've got a hollow space and hollow non-pressurized space, and we call it the trunk of the Dragon, right? Like the cargo area of the Dragon, or the unpressurized cargo area. And I just took a copy out and I put it on top. And the cool thing is, this right here is the curb. It's the Kerbal Expandable Recreation Bubble. It doesn't look like a recreation bubble right now, and we didn't want to step on y'all's toes too much, so we didn't go with the Expandable Activity Module. We had an Expandable Recreation Bubble. But Rover Dude, who made MKS OKS, the Colonization series, the Survivability series, he has a lot of experience with these expandable sorts of parts, made it so that we can right-click on this little package and do expand. In the curb, the bubble will actually become a bigger internal space. And the really cool thing in KSP is that this maps to another part that we have in the stock game called the Hitchhiker. If you want to sometimes send Kerbals to space, you can use this little PD-10 Hitchhiker storage container, right? And they hitchhike along on your spacecraft. It's a running joke. A lot of times the Kerbals will sneak inside the spacecraft when you really don't want them there. And we've kind of done this so that the beam, or the curb here, right, because it's kind of maps one-to-one sort of thing, when it's expanded, is about the same capacity as the Hitchhiker. But the trick is, when it's not expanded, the curb, or the beam, whichever one we want to call it, is much smaller. So imagine that you wanted to add X amount of cubic volume to your station, right? And all you have is the old school stock game, like we delivered with space shuttles. You have the Hitchhiker container. The Hitchhiker container here weighs 2.5 tons, and it holds 4 Kerbals, and it's this size. I would have to either launch a space shuttle or a big rocket in order to get that Hitchhiker into space, right? Something that can carry 2.5 tons, has enough delta V, has enough fuel versus ISP to push this up to the station, do the rendezvous, yada, yada, yada. Compare that with Rover Dude's part, the curb. Whenever it's collapsed, the Kerb weighs, it's under utility, I believe the Kerb weighs 0.25 tons, and it's very small. I didn't calculate what the percentage volume decrease was. Do y'all know what the percentage volume increase versus decrease is for the actual beam?
I can tell you the internal evacuated volume before launch and after deployment, there's about a 11-fold increase.
It's 11, so it gets 11 times more voluminous? Bigger. It gets voluminous. Nice, thank you. It gets 11 times more voluminous when it's expanded versus when it's contract. And I don't know that's... I don't know, does anybody want to do the math on this? That would be cool if anybody wants to do the math in chat. But when we actually expand this thing, we get something that's about the same size as the Hitchhiker. What about the mass? Like, do y'all have any figures in terms of the beam if we ship up like a normal module that had the expanded volume of the beam? How much would that unexpandable module weigh versus the beam? Is there like a weight savings as well you were talking about?
I can definitely tell you there's a huge weight savings. I'm not very good at comparing it to the existing mass of the modules.
Right.
I can tell you the beam is roughly 3,000 pounds.
Okay.
So I'll let viewers do some calculations about how our volume of about 16 cubic meters and weighing about 3,000 pounds, how that compares to some of the existing modules.
So that would actually be cool. You're learning, right? I always put stuff on chat. I'm like, hey, how about you, chat, go figure some stuff out for me while I continue to play video games. Y'all go do the math. We always task chat with looking up things. So if somebody wants to look up and see if we can do a comparison between the mass and the volume of the beam versus a similar module on the International Space Station and its mass and its volume, that would be interesting to look at. I don't know that we have this kind of scaled correctly right now because we have a 10x difference in mass. So the Hitchhiker container is 2.5 tons, and our little beam is 0.25. It's probably not a 10x savings in mass in the real world, right? Because you still have to have structural elements and insulation and radiation shielding and that sort of stuff. So we're not going to save all the weight. But maybe we need to change the side of that. And guys, I do see a lot of questions in chat. We'll do a Q&A in kind of the second half. Right now we're just kind of talking through and doing the demo. But in about 15 minutes, I'll start reading through chat and asking some questions. If you guys can hold your questions until then, we'll be passing some things on whenever we get to that point. So if anybody in chat wants to figure that out, what's the kind of like mass savings, there are some things. There's some specs. Thank you, Justin Space. There are some specs that Justin Space just put into chat over there, bigelowaerospace.com/beam. Thank you for that, Justin. So, long story short, to wrap all of this up, we've got the Hitchhiker, which also doesn't fit very well into the back of the Dragon. Like, it's actually the size of the Dragon. So if we want to deliver the Hitchhiker up there, we would need a larger delivery vehicle, a space shuttle, or something along those lines, versus a smaller delivery vehicle like a Dragon or a Cygnus or something like that, right? And once we get it up there, we can actually inflate it. Sorry. We can expand it. We can expand it, and then we get the additional volume that we would want. We have so much room for activities, etc., etc., etc. I think I've talked about this enough. It may be actually time to launch some things, huh?
That'd be awesome. Yeah, we'd love to see you launch that.
Yes, they caught it. Thank you, chat. I see you.
We didn't even good chat.
So if I had just played it off, y'all would have never noticed it. But Twitch chat, nothing gets by Twitch chat, y'all. Jeez.
Yep.
Wow. Let's see what else we've got here. I actually just need to reload up the, don't save the changes, because I've got a tested Falcon ready to go. Let me go down and grab the Falcon. Where's it at? There we go. Load it. Hey, somebody was saying the version of the Dragon, this is the this the Kerbal Space Program 1.1 certified version. It's not a designator for the Dragon. This is the designator of the version of KSP that this works in. So what I'm going to do, Bigelow, I'm going to do this launch, and I'll try to be quiet for a little bit. Do y'all want to talk some about the materials that the beam is made out of? Like, when we get up there in space, right, we've got all sorts of things in the kind of harsh, unfriendly environment, unfriendly to humans at least, that we have to deal with. We've got temperature, we've got vacuum, we've got radiation. While I'm doing the launch, do y'all want to kind of talk through the different challenges that you face in terms of protecting humans from the rigors of space and kind of how the beam addresses those things. Because I know there's some experiments in the beam. They're going to be watching radiation and watching like pressure and materials resiliency and that sort of stuff. And I, in a very uncharacteristic maneuver, will be quiet for a second while y'all talk about that. Sound good?
Sure.
Excellent.
Yeah, so I guess I'll take us to this. Yeah, you know, it's difficult in one respect to get a soft material to inflate into a certain shape and to be able to pack it down into a nice package and get it up there. But it's a whole other thing altogether to create that same environment and get it rated safety-wise for a crew to be able to go inside and live inside it. And we're talking about a crew of astronauts. You know, it's not just anybody. These are very important people.
As opposed to Kerbals.
As opposed to the Kerbals, exactly.
Kerbals are very important. They're expendable. That's what the E in their name is for. Go ahead.
Right. There's no restart button on the beam. You know, we've got to make sure that it's. So, to kind of talk about what those materials are, you know, obviously I can't go into too much detail. There's a lot of proprietary information about the composite materials that we use. But you can kind of think of it as a thin bladder material that maintains the air pressure on the inside. And then just outside that, we've got a retention shell, which resists all of the massive pressure forces when we go to inflate it and match pressures with the current pressures on station.
Right.
And then there's a whole other stack of layers that we've got on the outside of beams. So the first things I described are what maintain the pressure, and that's pretty simple. But then you've got to defend against all of the micrometeorites and orbital debris that's flying around in orbit.
Right.
And that's another huge, difficult thing to do. Those things are moving at, I don't know, how many 7 kilometers a second, something like that.
Very fast.
So we've got to, yeah. So we've got to do a huge amount of testing to make sure that nothing is going to be able to penetrate into our habitat. I don't know, I can't talk about it.
I mean,
I don't want to go too far into it because then somebody else.
That's fine. That's absolutely fine.
No, I hit you because I didn't inflate.
Even I did it.
So there's stuff flying around, and you have to deal with things that are going to impact the outside of the beam. You've got the pressure matching with the inside of the station. You've got radiation. Even if you don't have to talk about the materials, you can just class this stuff as science-y bits if you want. You can just be like, well, there's some scientific materials that we use. We're used to terms like that. But I think like a recent sort of tweet that came out, somebody saw a little ding in the window of the cupola. Did anybody see that tweet? Where there's a little it's a nick in the glass of the cupola, and that's glass as opposed to something that expands once it's in space. So clearly you've got to have something that can resist those sorts of impacts from debris.
Shield side. It's a layered shield system. It's on a lot of the ISS. So the cupola is a little bit unique in that it's one of the places on ISS that when it's open, it's not covered by an MMOD shield. So things fly in and hit it. One thing that I was really surprised about when I started working here as an engineer is that I got to go out and actually see one of our units in person.
Okay.
And all the materials. And you would think because this is expandable material, it's obviously soft when it collapses down, that there would be some difference when it's pressurized in how it feels. Like you'd actually feel that it's soft, but it's just like pressing on a wall. And that's just because of how much pressure is behind the material, and then just how tight it gets. And the material is made to do that, and it's just surprisingly strong, and doesn't make you think of it being an expandable structure anymore when you actually go and touch it.
So, like when it's expanded, if you push against it, it's a very rigid sort of thing. It's not like a bouncy castle, right, that you have inflated at a birthday party. Right. You push on it, and it feels like a drywall wall or something like that you could lean on without dipping into. You wouldn't want to go to sleep leaning against the beam, I guess, huh?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I think a lot of us here share that same amazement with the way this thing feels. Whenever I try to describe it to somebody, I say just go push on one of the walls of your bedroom, and you know what the walls of beam feel like. It's not much different.
What is it when it's compressed or when it's not expanded? Is it the same sort of thing when it's not expanded, or is it kind of spongy, or can you like push against it when it's not expanded? Is it? I'm kind of think of is it like a thick, tough feeling material all the time? and it takes a lot of force to expand it, or is it kind of like more squishy when not expanded? Or can you tell me?
Yeah, we can do that. I mean, it's a very rugged material. When it's not inflated, you don't have that massive pressure force pushing it into place, so it does give a little, I don't know, I'm trying to think of a good analogy. If you're familiar with a camping tent that's all packed down and cinched up, if you were to push on that, it's kind of like that. So, it'll push back a little bit, a little flexible.
Gotcha. And look at this, KSP JT there in chat did a little bit of math. They said Bigelow is 16 cubic meters and 3,000 pounds. The Harmony module is 75 cubic meters and 31,000 pounds, which is 1/5 the size and 1/10 the weight for the Bigelow module. Here goes the expand thing again. Why did I make this emote anyways? Oh no. So somebody said, like, as a rough sort of napkin comparison, that it may be 1/10 the savings. That seems like really, not 1/10 the savings, but 10% of the amount, I guess. That seems really optimistic, man. I mean, that would be amazing if we could actually save that much. I
believe it. We deal with a lot of those comparison figures day to day, and that's not very surprising. This thing it's incredible how efficient it is.
I mean, y'all wouldn't be in the business if it wasn't a good idea, right? You're not just launching inflatable things to space for fun, right?
Exactly. We're just waiting for everybody else to catch on.
Everybody to catch on, right? So I did a little bit of a launch there, and now I'm trying to set up a rendezvous with my station. I overcooked it a little bit because I was looking at chat, and that doesn't happen during normal launches. I'm trying to see if maybe I can't set up a direct rendezvous with the station now, but it's not looking like it's going to be a thing. Oh, I'm actually really close to the station. That's actually fantastic. And I'm just kind of eyeballing this. I mean, clearly I'm not doing burns and calculations in advance or anything like that. I'm literally playing a video game and calculating orbital maneuvers in my head. Calculating is the wrong word. Just kind of messing it up. The inflator... What? No, I didn't... Did I inflate? I said inflate again. They're never going to let me live this down, saying inflate too many times. But I just have to see if I can set up a rendezvous with the ISS. Now, I'm not going through the typical rendezvous here. Normally there's, I think it's about 7 burns. 7 different orbital maneuvers that occur in order to get a spacecraft up to the ISS. They go into kind of a temporary parking-esque sort of orbit, and then they clean that up into a much better defined orbit. And I'm coming in way behind this station. The good news is I know how to play with this, and we should be able to make it. If we add a maneuver, and we waste a little bit of radial in, that's not a very efficient way to go places, and we do a little bit of prograde, and we do a little bit of... We call it radial in KSP. It's actually anti-radial, but don't tell NASA. And then I can do that. That actually looks fine to me. So what about radiation? Are there any sort of special things that y'all had to do on beam to deal with the radiation?
So one thing to keep in mind is that beam is a technology demonstration for NASA. So they're putting various features on beam, including radiation and temperature and monitoring the pressure throughout its 2-year nominal mission life on ISS.
Okay.
So during that time, they'll collect all that data and see how it performs. But as far as what we've done, beforehand was, I mean, we think it'll perform fine. But again, technology demonstration. So we'll get validated results, I guess, soon.
So you say technology demonstration. How much time are the astronauts on the station going to actually spend in the beam? It's not like somebody's going to take one of their little space Velcro sleeping bags over there and sleep there every night, right?
That's correct. Yeah. So nominally, right now, what the ops department at NASA has done was they're essentially allowing them to go in 4 times a year to essentially do maintenance. So clean, check on beam, and take samples. Okay. Now, however, we've been told that if they feel comfortable with it after the first few ingresses, they may just leave it open. They can ingress freely, but that's still TBD. So.
Okay. So that's actually a really good question. Is there any sort of I know that it's going to be sharing the atmosphere, right, with the space station. It's not like it has its own little air conditioner in it. There's going to be some sort of open conduit, is that the right term, between beam and the station? Am I correct on that?
Yeah, they've basically on our forward bulkhead that the crew is exposed to, there are 2 5-inch ports. One of them is for an inflow of air, and the other one is for an outflow of air. So they continuously evacuate and replenish the air inside of beam for a variety of reasons. They don't want condensation to build up. It's for temperature control and that kind of thing. So technically, throughout the duration, it will still be a shared volume with the space station. However, the hatch will be closed nominally.
Okay, so the big hatch, like the big hatch that an astronaut could crawl through, would be closed, but it does have a little passage. So my question would be, on the beam or through these little conduits, is there some sort of like emergency close mechanism? Like if it detects a sudden pressure drop in the beam, will those things like slam close like an emergency hatch in a spaceship that you would imagine, right, from a sci-fi movie, to keep the ISS from losing its pressure? Is there something like that in place?
Yeah, so ISS, the stack pressure in ISS has an audible alarm. So in the event that there is a rapid depress event, crew can manually shut them.
Okay.
However, the valves can also be shut from the ground by mission control.
Okay, gotcha. So there's some sort of alarm system that would notify personnel, but there's not an automated thing that would slam them closed. It would be somebody saying, "Whoa, there's a problem here. Hit the button to remotely close them from mission control," or the astronauts locally on the station could close them down, right?
That's correct.
Excellent. That kind of leads me to another question. This is my time to ask them questions, chat. You'll have time in a second. You know this thing from like World War II, right? Where there were planes that had self-sealing fuel tanks. So that if you got bullets in your fuel tank, they had like a layer inside that would self-seal the fuel tank to stop the fuel leak. I haven't heard of anything like this, but is there anything like that on the beam? Like, are there certain sizes of maybe a puncture in the beam that would automatically close without being a problem? Or is it like, whoa, it got punctured, that's for a future sort of thing? Or can you tell me? If you can't tell me, just be like, yeah, we don't talk about that.
I would say that is a future sort of thing right now.
That's a future sort of thing.
At least beam, it doesn't have any sort of self-sealing capability. We have a few prescribed methods for dealing with a leak if it were to occur. We even shipped up a little patch kit just in case, but that's something that we never expect to happen.
Right. So it's almost like not a bicycle tire, right? That's the wrong thing. I envision like a little bicycle repair kit, and an astronaut's going to go in there with some rubber cement and slather it on the inside of the beam and then slap a patch on it. But y'all did provide some sort of contingency, just in case sort of thing that's with it, but it's not a nominal sort of thing to use that, right?
Yeah, it's pretty much like the rest of the station, actually. You'd think it's different because the materials are different, but
right.
They would handle a leak anywhere on station in kind of the same fashion and probably close it off. To be honest, that's the station procedure.
Okay. So it's like this. They have something that is like a normal procedure in the big space station manual on what happens if there's a leak. And it's not like there's a special thing just for the beam. It's like, hey, when the pressure loss is on the station, they deal with that, right?
Right. Yeah, it'd probably be exciting to give you a different answer, but they really do treat beam like any other module.
That's actually really cool. Chat told me to stop comparing things that inflate with the beam, like bicycle tires. Oh. So I'm actually approaching the ISS here. Again, we're doing an arcade sort of approach to the station. We're coming in at 100 meters per second when we're 2 kilometers away, and we're going to slam on the brakes at the last second. This is not how the Dragon in real life approaches the International Space Station, chat. This is just me, in the interest of time, getting the payload here very quickly. I don't know, if SpaceX ever needs to hire me to sit on the joystick of the Dragons and fly them in this fast, I'll be happy to do it, but I don't know if I'm ready for that level of responsibility.
It's going to be entertaining.
So another thing here, what I'm going to do, typically the Dragon would be berthed to the station, which, if I'm getting my terminology correct, I haven't mixed it up today, means that it would be captured by the Canadarm and attached to the station using the Canadarm. I'm just going to dock the Dragon like a Soyuz docks to the station, instead of going through all the time of the Canadarm doing the maneuver. Oops, well, we just... don't tell anybody that's there. That orbital debris, that's not important. We'll zap it with a laser or something. I'm actually just going to dock the Dragon with the station in the interest of time. We did the grapple maneuver yesterday. We actually grappled the Dragon. We put it in the correct grappling position. We grappled it with the Canadarm. We moved it around. It takes time to do that. So since I've got a limited amount of time with y'all, I'm just going to go ahead with a docking procedure here. But I will put it in the correct position, at least. Just come to a stop. And see if I can't maybe... Is it almost daytime? No. Oh well. Let's flip this around. and use the RCS to fly the Dragon over. And you can actually see the beam in the trunk here out the back of the Dragon. And I need to flip it over, and we'll go ahead and park it. So chat, now I've had my chance to ask some questions of the Beam team. Hey, I'm going to call y'all the Beam team. Is that cool?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We call ourselves...
Nice. You'll need like basketball jerseys or something that says the Beam team on it. Just let me know if y'all get that going. I would like to wear a basketball jersey too if I can get in there. Chat, if you have a question, start your question with the word question. I and the moderators will pull questions out. There's no way that I can get to all the questions. Just please be patient with me. I'll look at the question. If I think it's a good question, I'll ask the Beam team here. Hey, look, a question for the Beam team. I like that. But please be patient with me. We won't be able to get to all the questions because we do have a limited amount of time. Let's see here. I think the guys on the ISS would have more issue with that approach than SpaceX would. The SpaceX employee tells me that the ISS may be concerned about my approach methodology here. Question for the Beam team. How much work went into making sure the inside of the beam doesn't have a strong odor since there's no fresh air on the ISS? Ooh, that's interesting. We hear about that all the time where the ISS sometimes, I think somebody referred to it as like a space locker room because there's not a lot of fresh air coming up and down. So that's actually a really good question. Is that something that you thought about, or did you take any kind of like steps to make sure that that wasn't going to be a problem?
Well, one thing to remember is that we are vented on the way up the trunk. So all the air on the ground just gets vented out. And then when we expand, we have fresh air in the tanks.
Okay.
So all the air inside is fresh, and you know, anything lingering inside would be vented. Secondly, NASA makes sure that everything that attaches to station is non-toxic and doesn't present anything in the atmosphere that would be harmful. So we did some tests on the ground, and they were happy with the results.
Excellent. So they test materials and stuff like that in advance to make sure that it's not going to get up there. And, you know, we keep going back to the rubber tire thing. And remember, chat, they're not sending a rubber tire. You've ever smelled like your bike tire or your car tire or something? It's not like the entire ISS is going to smell like a bicycle tire because it doesn't have anything to do with the bicycle tire. So no, there's not going to be any strong odors or anything like that. Nice. Let's see here. Question. Oh, this is a good one. Question. Do you expect an expandable module can help mitigate some of the noise issues for the crew of the ISS? We've all heard kind of the internal ambient noises that are on the ISS, the sort of audio that we get sometime. Does Bigelow think that maybe expandable modules will be less problematic from a noise perspective? That's a good question.
I think, at least for Beam, because this one is sort of just a demonstration module, the inside isn't going to be completely outfitted like some of our future spacecraft.
Right.
What that means, what the crew is exposed to on the inside is directly the air bladder. So it's, I don't know, a good way, it's a sort of a plasticky material. It's like, it doesn't really have any soft sound absorption quality to it. So
okay.
Honestly, I don't think the beam, at least, will be any quieter than the rest of the station.
Gotcha.
Also, NASA
go.
in there to help the air circulation, and the fan's noisy. So, unfortunately, that kind of canceled that out for us.
I gotcha. And again, you know, like when we think about this stuff, this is the myth or the misconception that we're trying to dispel here. The beam is not a pillow. You would not want to lay down on the beam. Remember, we said that it's like leaning against a wall or pressing on a wall. So it's not like a foamy, like pillow sort of material. So maybe it wouldn't have sort of sound dampening material. It's a hard sort of rigid structure because it's got to hold up to space. Nice. I'm docking and reading questions in chat. I think that there's a law in space against that. I know a lot of states have laws against texting and driving. I'm not sure what operating around the International Space Station. Whatever. I've docked a couple times. I got it done. But that's good to go. Let's see if there's some more questions. Gav, this is a good question. Are there any inflatable modules? No. Yay, you tricked me into saying that, Gav. It says inflatable in your thing. That was y'all's fault. That was Gav's fault. He tricked me. Are there any expandable modules which can have a window or see-through section? Is there something about the fact that it expands that keeps you from being able to put a see-through section or a window on it? So Beam doesn't have a window, I know.
Right, that's correct. Beam does not. And the ability to put a window or some see-through area into an expandable habitat is difficult, more difficult than integrating into a metallic structure.
Right.
However, we do have that ability. In fact, the next program that we're working on will have 4 windows integrated into the soft outer layer.
The next program, is that the one that you announced with ULA?
Yeah, the B330.
The B330, nice. So the Beam doesn't have any windows, but the B330 does have plans to have some picturesque windows so people can look out?
That's correct.
That's fantastic. Let's see here. Here's a good question. What types of activities or science will this extra space allow that can't be done now? I can take a wag at that one. They're not taking like other experiments into the beam and using the volume of the beam to do other experiments. Like nobody's going to go in there and put some hydroponic soy garden or anything, right? The beam is testing the beam in the expandable space technologies, right?
That's right, except we actually do have the potential for some companies or research organizations to bring things inside, and that's something that's being talked about right now. So I would just kind of watch this space. Once we get it up there in its expanded form, you know, then the opportunities are kind of limitless. And NASA's pretty excited about that part.
Okay, this is why I get on the phone with experts, guys, because I kind of take a wag at something, and then that's actually really cool. So something y'all have talked about is letting other experiments come in and use the space in the beam that maybe wouldn't be available on the rest of the station. That's fantastic.
Yeah, that's...
Go ahead. I cut you off there. That was my fault.
Oh, no problem. Yeah, I was going to say we started out just as a technology demonstration, so all these conversations we're having now about how to use Beam Next is pretty exciting for all of us. It's a bonus.
Excellent. Let's see here. This would be a good one for someone on the Beam team to explain. How is it that the beam can expand yet maintain pressure? So it gets bigger, you've got to fill it with something, right? That seems pretty straightforward.
Right. So this is kind of one of the reasons that we try to avoid, you know, however difficult it is, we like to avoid saying because it's very different than that. It's not like a balloon where when you inflate it and you put more and more air into it, the pressure increases and so does the volume. It doesn't continuously get bigger and bigger. The interesting thing is that right outside of that air bladder that I mentioned earlier is the restraint system. It's a very stiff system. It's more like a bulletproof vest or Kevlar-like material, so that once it is pressurized, the amount of strain that goes into that material is very, very small. So once the air barrier is pressed up against it with its full pressure, it's not going anywhere. It is at its maximum shape.
Okay. Excellent. So it's not the sort of thing where you've got... that's a good question. The air pressure inside the beam, while it may be... I guess the air pressure isn't required as a structural sort of thing for the beam, right? Like the air pressure isn't what's making the beam expand. The beam mechanically expands, not through the air pressure pushing, but because of like equipment inside the beam. Is that the right way to say that?
Well, you can kind of think of it like 2 stages. The first stage is the air pressure does get it to its final shape.
Okay.
It does that as its energy source to expand.
Oh, okay.
But once that outer layer gets, once it sees that internal pressure and it gets to its maximum designed shape, you can basically pressurize it up until it matches the station pressure, if that makes sense. That's kind of a hard thing to explain.
Gotcha. Well, that's something that I didn't know. It wasn't like it's not like a worm gear in there or something pushing it out. It actually does use air pressure to expand itself.
Exactly.
Okay, gotcha. But it's not inflating itself. It's just using the air pressure to expand itself. That's different from inflating, right?
Right. It expands with air pressure and then it pressurizes. That's the best way to describe it.
It expands with air pressure, then it pressurizes. Nice. Let's see here. And guys, there's so many good questions. I'm scrolling through. Some of the questions I see we already answered earlier, so I am skipping over those. Let's see here. This is a good one. And tell me about this if you can. Question, has Bigelow looked into simulating the beam or expandable modules in other environments like the moon or Mars?
The future, I think. And that's a really important feature for us because your advantages of launching things that give you a bigger volume and mass advantage make more and more of a difference the farther away from Earth you get.
Absolutely.
So for missions, absolutely, that's where we're going someday.
And like I said earlier, it's not like Bigelow is just launching things in space for fun. The beam is an awesome technology demonstrator sort of thing, and it's kind of not even the first step, because y'all have done things before the beam, but it's one of the steps towards being able to use technology like this as we move out into space, whether it's low Earth orbit or a moon-based sort of thing or a Mars-based sort of thing, like what we learned from this. And I'm speaking of we learned from this on a very big grand scale, but we're not just putting this stuff up there for fun, right? We're trying to learn things that we can use. Let's see here. D2. We've answered that one. Okay. There's that one. Keep on scrolling down. All right. Space engineer. Wow, there's so many questions. Oh, here's a good one. What's going to happen to the beam after 2 years of testing? So I think its mission right now is for 2 years. They're going to observe it for 2 years. What's going to become of the beam at the end of 2 years? As I try to operate the Canadarm while I'm reading questions.
Yeah, the beam after the nominal 2-year mission will actually just be disposed of by the Canadarm, so it'll be unberthed from station, and then it'll be lowered by the arm as full extent as it possibly can go, and then just released, and it'll deorbit and burn up upon reentry.
So wait, time out. Is the Canadarm going to wind up like a baseball pitcher and throw it out of orbit, or they're just going to put it a little bit?
No.
Okay, because I can do that. I can do that in KSP.
It lowers beam as far as it can from station, and then it'll just release it.
Then it just releases it, and then the natural atmospheric drag will slow the beam down and eventually have it deorbit.
Correct. So station will see beam come up below it every now and then, for a little bit of time, but then it'll eventually just deorbit. And
Gotcha.
they've done a ton of analysis on this, wouldn't actually re-impact station, of course. So.
Okay. And I appreciate the fact that you sound kind of bummed out when you say that. You're like, well, then it's going to deorbit. I'm with you on that. You're like,
We're hoping that they leave it on there for a little bit longer.
Yeah.
Nice, but there's no plan to pack it back into a Dragon. Well, you couldn't because the trunk doesn't come down with the Dragon. There's no plan to recover the beam to look at its materials down on the Earth. It's going to burn up in the atmosphere.
That's correct.
Unfortunately, yeah.
Unfortunately. That's okay. That's like we learn. We say this with SpaceX all the time, right? People come in and they're like, oh, did you see that SpaceX failed their rocket landing again? And it's like, SpaceX didn't fail their rocket landing. They learned something from it, and because they learned something from it, the mission's not a failure, right? Let's see here. There's so many parses. Is this the standard size, or do they plan to have bigger ones? We've talked about that one a little bit, Jaxa. I think the next thing is the 330. Can y'all tell us how much bigger the 330 is than the beam?
So beam as a core is roughly 16 cubic meters of internal volume. The B330 is cleverly named because the internal volume of it is 330 cubic meters.
There you go.
So almost a 20 times increase.
20 times increase. Nice. And I've seen things for the 330. The 330 is kind of another thing that you've worked on. You announced it with ULA and that sort of thing, but that's a future sort of thing you're working on. No, they don't have a bouncy castle in space. There's probably a sticker somewhere on the beam that says not suitable for use as a bouncy castle, right?
It won't be bouncy at all.
Not bouncy at all. It would be like banging your head against the wall. We've talked about this.
Yeah, try to bounce off your walls right now. That's what it's going to feel like.
If you think the beam is like a bouncy castle, run at your wall and crash into your wall. Don't do that, okay? I'm kidding, okay? Please don't do that in real life. That's about how rigid the walls of the beam are when it's expanded. Here's a good question. How long will it take to expand the beam? I'm never going to get this Canadarm mission done, by the way. I'm talking too much.
The deployment of beam will actually be happening in about 2 weeks from now.
Okay.
Given the various how do I say this? So to expand beam, we actually have to be in a daylight task, and we also have to have communications with teachers, or station has to have communication with teachers so that they can talk to mission control.
Okay.
So in all, it's going to take quite a while to do the full, I guess what you call deployment operations of beam. So it'll take days to actually do the whole thing.
Gotcha.
But to actually get beam to, it's projected to take a few hours, mainly because of operational procedures.
Okay. So like checking, okay, this step is done, check that everything's nominal, okay, move on to the next step. This step is done, move on to the next step, sort of thing, right?
Yeah, you got it.
Gotcha. All these space companies and their checklists. Mine is like throttle up, pen lock, SAS engage, and press the spacebar to launch our rocket. Let's see here. Let's see. Go ahead.
You're just gonna right click. You're just going to right-click to expand the curve, right?
Literally, they're just going to right-click on the beam and send the command to expand. The expand command, if you will. And then it's just going to like, whoop, and all of a sudden it'll be good to go. Let's see. Oh, man, the questions are getting away from me. There's so many awesome questions in chat. There's 1,000 people watching right now. And I'm having trouble keeping up with the questions. Let's see here. Oh, here's a good one. Will expandable modules be rigid enough to kind of like attach in line? So could I have like 3 expandable modules daisy chained on each other? Or is it just, wow, the expandable module has a little bit less structural integrity, so we have to have it as kind of a leaf as opposed to a branch or a root or something like that on a space structure? Is that something you can expand on?
Yeah, the goal will be to have them linkable, so to speak. The forward end and the aft end would be able to link up other, and you could tie these things together to create a whole new station if you wanted.
That is fantastic. So it's not just... Now, the beam doesn't have anything connected to the end of it. We don't expect to connect anything onto the beam, but the future sort of plans are that just because it's an expandable structure doesn't mean that it lacks enough rigidity to build a bigger and bigger structure on top of, right?
Got it right. Yeah, beam doesn't have anything on the back end of it to link up with anything else, but the future ones will.
Gotcha. It has a Canadarm grapple point. Let me correct the guy from the beam team. It has a Canadarm grapple point, so the Canadarm can grab it, because that's what I'm about to do, right? But you don't put you're not going to put like 4 beams in a row, right?
Right.
Gotcha. Let's see here. Beam team was... Okay, a lot of people asked that question. That question came up a bunch about the structural integrity in expanding modules, like adding modules to it. All right, we're not talking about patents or anything like that. I'm going to skip those questions. Question, is there any possibility that if all goes well with Beam during the 2 years, they will keep it on? Or will it be deorbited no matter what? Is there any potential for, wow, Beam's doing really awesome, we're going to keep it up there for a little bit longer? Or is it just no matter what, that's like the current contract?
Yeah, I've heard there's some potential to keep it on there. I think that's a conversation that happens on a different level from all of us. But
yeah, gotcha.
We would certainly, yeah, that would be great.
I think everybody watching the stream would be rooting for keeping it up there for longer because we like cool things to be in space. Man, I really should have had a co-host on with me to read all these awesome questions while I operate the Canadarm one click at a time.
Doing a good job. We're amazed at your ability to multitask.
I'm working on it. And I'm still going faster than the actual Canadarm. That's a good question. Once it's expanded, can the beam be collapsed again? Or is it once it's expanded, it's done? You're not changing it anymore. It stays that way.
There's no plan, obviously, to collapse it. Technically, if you had the means to do it, you could collapse it back down again. Once pressure is removed from the inside, the walls would become soft again.
Okay.
And given the right inputs, you could fold it again if you wanted.
Okay, gotcha. All right. Reading more. And I'm like holding down the Canadarm button, not watching what I'm doing with the Canadarm while I'm reading texts. There was a lot of people asked the repack message. Go ahead. There's modules. There we go. What are some future goals? Can you talk about future goals? Is that something that we're not really talking about right now? Because there's a question about what's kind of next after Beam. Is that off the table for now?
Well, I mean, we've got the 330 on the website. I would encourage you to go and have a look. It's a pretty similar architecture. It's just bigger. and it's meant for different missions. And like I said before, we are looking to future missions even beyond LEO. So yeah, those are certainly things we're talking about every day around here.
So bigger and better expandable modules. And if we want, can somebody link up the link to the, and I'm not asking Bigelow, I'm telling chat. Somebody grab a link to the Bigelow 330, the bigger expandable module that they've got some information on the website that y'all could look at. And I'm yawing my effector on my Canadarm here, slowly but surely. I'm really close. I mean, luckily we've got this. Like, we figured out the method yesterday, and I'm really close to extracting this thing. Scrolling on down, getting some more questions. All right, there's that again. Those are 330 questions. We'll skip over a lot of the details on the 330 for now, Chad. I see some cool 330 questions over there as well, but let's focus on the beam for now. I asked about the self-repair one already. There's not any sort of like self-healing sort of thing right now. There's just too many cool questions. You know something, Beam Team? We've got about 10 minutes left. Is there anything that y'all want to talk about? Is there any like cool parts of the project that you worked on? Any like challenges that you're like you came up with a solution to? And my goal here is to let y'all talk a lot while I try to finish the Canadarm motions here. So y'all just have the floor. Tell us like a cool story about working on space things, or like a special challenge that was challenging, or maybe something that was like, wow, all of a sudden we just figured it out this way. Do y'all have anything like that?
Sure. Well, while we from our Secret Moments program, because I think there are a lot of those for me, one thing that was really fun was actually staying up all night and watching NASA berth the beam to Node 3. I kind of would fall asleep for a couple of minutes and then, wake up and watch where they'd moved it.
Yep.
That was just real. And the images you could see almost all of the beam on the outside. So, one of my favorite moments.
And it looked nothing like this, where the Canadarm is like waggling all over the place, right? It was a nice, steady sort of installation. I think I have the time lapse of a video there, if I am not mistaken. When you guys get off the line, I'm going to play that for chat, and I'll show the time lapse video that y'all showed me, or you sent me, so that chat can also see kind of what you're talking about there. So other cool space, or other cool kind of events.
I always like to say about the way that we do some of our pressure testing. We've got this soft material, and some people kind of get uneasy about how well it would withstand pressure and whatnot. One of the things that we do is a full-scale failure test of these materials, and the way that we do that is we submerge the whole article inside of a deep pool, and then we fill that article with water. And that allows us to pressurize the article to very, very high pressures until it ultimately fails. And this gives us some insight into how strong it is, especially compared to the metallics surrounding it. And the surprising thing is that the soft materials are very, very much stronger than the metallics that are connecting them.
Okay.
In fact, that soft barrier going around the outside is about 10 times stronger than it needs to be.
Wow.
Which is, I don't know, for me it's incredible to hear that, and then it's a whole another incredible thing, an exciting thing to put it into a pool and blow it up.
Blow it up, nice.
Sorry, we're watching what you're doing
no,
right
don't,
now on
no,
the screen.
don't. Don't pay any attention. Don't pay
but while you fix let me talk about one of my most surreal moments about the whole program. So,
cool.
We were all fortunate enough to be at the launch, and so, at the launch you don't really get to watch the SpaceX live webcast because you're there watching the rocket.
Right.
And after the launch happened, I started getting all these text messages, and it was from the SpaceX webcast, the technical webcast, where it showed Dragon separation, and beam was in the trunk, and clear view with Earth in the background, and it was probably just like the most surreal moment of the past year. And now it's the background of all of our phones. So.
It's the background of everybody's phones. Nice. So just seeing something that you've spent so much time on, kind of like actually in space with the entire world behind it, I can imagine that would be an amazing sort of thing to see. And y'all didn't see me just like, I don't know, the Canadarm is slightly going through the side of the Dragon. Don't tell anybody about that, okay?
We didn't see anything. Our screen blacked out for a little while.
Yeah, I blacked out. There was a loss of signal. There was a loss of signal for a brief time. And you might not want to see what I'm doing with the beam here, but I'm going to flip the entire thing around with my waggledy Canadarm here and see if in the next 5 minutes I can't get this thing stuck into the side of the station. So more cool stories. Tell us just cool things that you think. Maybe even stuff before you worked at Bigelow. Did anybody ever like launch Estes rockets or anything like that? Y'all always love space?
Yeah.
Did you just fall into it?
Oh, yes. Glad someone else mentioned Estes rockets.
Nice.
I remember when these stores used to sell those.
That's one of the streams that I'm going to try to do is we're going to try to stream an Estes rocket launch because of all these drone cameras and stuff you get these days. So we're going to try to create an Estes style rocket that's big enough to carry a drone camera like you'd have in one of the little drones that you fly around, and see if we can't stream that on Twitch. And we'll talk about rockets and cameras and that sort of cool stuff. It's just...
That's awesome. What type of apogee are you trying to go for?
Non-zero. It's like anything that's not on the ground will be a success, a mission success, if I get a non-zero apogee.
That's a good goal.
Yeah, I just like to maintain a very kind of realistic outlook for my rocket launching skills, okay? Let's see here. We should attach a Kerbal to it. Just large expandable modules. Oh, that's actually a really... If y'all can talk about that, when a module is expanded, is the stuff that goes inside of the module in the module already? Or do you have to, like, hire a moving company to bring in the couches and the futon or whatever after the module is expanded? Like, how does that work?
It's kind of a mixture of both. We have the capability to launch everything you'd need in the core structure of the craft.
Okay.
However, there's always the option of outfitting it with a portion of what you need and then getting the rest later if that's appetizing to somebody or a specific program.
Okay, gotcha. So you can make like a fully functional sort of thing by you're expanding the free airspace for astronauts, personnel to move around, but you can like all the things, the screens, the chairs, I'm making up stuff, the webbing that you sleep in, computers, that sort of stuff is built into the structure or can be built into the structure. It's not like it's just an empty thing. You have to ship it up, hire 2 guys in a rocket and get it into your capsule or something.
And that does bring up another interesting point. Beam is somewhat unique in the method or the shape through which it expands. Obviously, when you right-click that thing and it expands, it just blows up. But the cool thing is that it expands radially and it also expands axially. So when you expand Beam, those two, the forward and aft bulkheads, move away from each other. The future vehicles won't necessarily be like that. They will only have a radial expansion. So that core structure running from the forward end to the aft end will be fixed. It'll be solid. And inside of that is where we will store all of our subsystems and things like that.
Okay, so it's got like a central core down the middle that it won't get longer, but it'll get fatter, basically. That was actually one of the things that surprised us when I was talking with Rover Dude, who made our little mod here. Our little part, we thought that it just got bigger, it just got wider, right? And when I looked it up, I was like, wait a second, this technical specification document says that it actually gets longer as well. We were surprised at that. So the beam is actually going to get wider and longer at the same time. I'm so close to being done with this. This is like
You're doing a good job.
This is the home stretch. This is literally the home stretch. Like I've got it nice and flipped. Oh. Well, don't tell Rosfit. There's a solar panel there. Oh, well. Oops. Nobody report that to Roscosmos or whoever's in charge these days. I'd probably just break the solar panel off. In the interest of time. I don't think I can. Oh, no. Yeah, there we go. All right. I'm going to have to fold the elbow up some first. Don't tell anybody that I just smacked a solar panel with the beam. This was not here in our practice. No. Oh, ouch. Okay, that's not good either. More elbow, if shoulder pitch. Okay, there we go. I can do this. I just have to do it in the right order. This wasn't in this... I swear that solar panel is going to break off. This wasn't in the simulation. I apologize. The simulator...
Okay,
I'm having to learn on the fly here because the simulator was not an accurate representation of the challenge that I would face in the actual mission. Sorry about that. This poor solar panel just... wow, that's actually... there's not a lot of clearance for me to work there. Okay, that wasn't in the simulator. Yesterday, this piece fell off during launch, and we were just like, it's no big deal. We'll worry about that tomorrow. And now that I'm actually performing the actual mission because my training environment did not match my actual mission environment, I'm in trouble. This is why we like having good training simulations. I do know that it's 6 p.m. my time right now. It's 3 p.m. y'all's time. If you have to go, I understand. I am going to get this thing attached no matter what. And I will be quiet. Any sort of parting words for us? Any advice? Anything that you want to say? Thank you guys so much for being on the show with me.
We're happy to be here. We don't have another meeting until about 30 minutes from now, so we could stick around for a little bit longer.
I am not going to complain. I'm not going to kick you out of my show because the time's up. That's not how it works.
Just get on there and deploy.
We're so close. Like, if I have to, I'll just throw it at it and hope that it sticks. That is a valid. That's a valid Kerbal Space Program way of doing things. It's totally valid.
Yeah. I mean, at this point, you're close to being caught up with reality.
I'm really close. I am. Yeah, I'm really close here. I just need some effector pitch. So there was another good question in chat, and again, if y'all are like, let's talk about something else, feel free to tell me that. Did y'all ever explore other ways to kind of rigidify or make the beam or the expandable modules more structurally sound? Like, you expand it, and then you fill it with a chemical or something that causes a reaction that makes the walls hard. Almost like an epoxy sort of thing, where you mix two things together and it becomes a rigid, non-contractible structure. That sounds like the type of thing that y'all probably wouldn't talk about, but it actually sounds like a really interesting idea.
Kind of scratching our heads here. We haven't thought doing anything like that. You actually get some kind of benefit from having the walls still be able to, I don't know how to phrase it, but sort of breathe, if you will.
Okay.
Being an expandable structure and soft material, especially for something that's not sharing volume with the station. So B330, for example, as it sees increases in temperature through the cycle of orbit, you kind of want it to be able to handle that without seeing massive increases in the shell forces.
Okay.
So the ability to move and breathe with those internal forces actually gives you a lot of benefit when it comes to this concept.
Okay. So it's maybe not a good idea to have a rigid structure. Or you get benefits from not having a rigid structure. You know what I'm saying. I'm saying it the wrong way.
Yeah. It's better to have it be able to give ever so slightly.
Gotcha. That makes sense. That's almost like a tree bending in the wind instead of breaking, right? It gives you a little bit more flexibility instead of making it perfectly brittle. Might be a good negative connotation word there. You don't want to make it hard and brittle. You want to make it able to expand and contract. Did y'all have any problems with temperature differences, like on the night side versus the day side? No sun hitting it, the sun hitting it. Is that a big deal?
We actually, again, we've gone through so many iterations and phases of analysis that have directed us towards putting the correct materials on the outside that the temperatures on the inside aren't really a concern at this point, especially with, once again, being able to share volume with the rest of the station and having a continuous circulation of air. It's very controlled.
Gotcha. So it's not like, every day you get an extra 3 cubic meters, then at night you lose those 3 cubic meters because it expands and retracts. That's not a thing that happens.
Correct.
Gotcha. I do hope that I've got the Canadarm in the right position here to be able to get over this way. I may just have to throw it or take a Kerbal out there to throw it or something, because the Canadarm can't actually rotate around in this direction. And I don't know that I may have got the Canadarm kinked up the wrong way. I'm going to have to see. And it's so, wow, there's so little clearance here. I need to unfold
that must mean that you're doing something right, because also through our development phases, the robotics team did a lot of analysis. And I remember them saying over and over again that this was a very tricky maneuver, and there were very small clearances involved.
KSP is just like real life. I'm an actual rocket scientist / Canadarm operator. Thank you. No, I got it. Look, I think I've got it here. It's just amazing. Like, I didn't appreciate how complicated the Canadarm was until I built the Canadarm, right? Because this isn't like it's not a one piece. I actually had to get all the little right angles and the arm pieces and the right servo joints and that sort of stuff and put them together to replicate the actual design of the Canadarm. And I never appreciated how cool it was, like how many degrees of freedom it had. Oh my gosh, we're so close. how many degrees of freedom it has and how just flexible it is as like an instrument for working on the station. You wouldn't think... Uh-oh, that's the wrong way. What did I just do? Okay. Like, you just... It helps gain an appreciation for how cool this stuff is and how much thought and work goes into thinking through these maneuvers and the sorts of things that you have to do in order to move things around the station, because it's serious business. We have fun on the show, right? We laugh, rockets flip out while they launch, etc., etc. In real life, we don't laugh as much whenever that sort of stuff happens. We learn, but we don't make fun of it. So just appreciating the amount of time and effort and thought and testing and everything. Oh, look at this. We just about got this. That goes into this is really, really, really impressive. And I have a lot of respect for the people who do this. Look at this. Oh. So y'all want to see a trick? Y'all want to see an awesome Kerbal trick?
See it.
We've got really strong magnets on our docking ports to help people play KSP, and these are not things that we have in the real world. So typically, if I want to dock something, I can just let it go, and most of the time the magnet will just pull it together. And I get it lined up enough, mostly because I want my logo to be nice and fashionably in the right position on the side here. And then if I just let it go when it's correctly aligned, it should just fly over and dock, much unlike the real International Space Station. I mean, I think I basically got it here. I need like a smidgen more effector pitch. Ooh, man, look at that. Look at it. It's hitting right there. But I'm just going to F5 it, and let's see if this works. I'm going to turn off the magnet on the effector. Eek. And just let the beam fly over at the... Easy peasy! There you go. Now, in 10 seconds, y'all will see that it was successful. Sorry for the spoilers.
Alright!
But even though we didn't have exactly what NASA would term as a firm lock, a solid lock there, luckily magnets, how do they work? They work by pulling things magically across time and space. Ka-chunk! It should have made a ka-chunk noise when it talked in like that. So now all I have to do is get the arm out of the way, and I think I can just do that with elbow fold. And, oh come on, we've gotten this far without taking that solar panel off. Can I get some, shoulder roll? I made all these terms up, by the way. I don't think that the actual Canadarm uses terms like shoulder roll and elbow fold. But it's good enough for me to remember how this works. Let me get the Canadarm out of the way. Ah, yes. That looks like it should be enough. I hope when we expand this thing, it doesn't take off the solar panel. Again, don't tell NASA. I'll just send a Kerbal out there and I have a Kerbal EVA and smash his helmet against that solar panel if we need to move it. But I'm going to F5 for safety here, just like it says on the back of my hat. Let's get all this stuff out of the way, and let's see if we can't right-click and expand the curb. The Bigelow Expandable Recreation Bubble. Now it's kind of a flattened bubble. Let's see if the beam takes out the solar panel. Exactly, Rover Dude. I'm going to send it the command to expand, and let it slowly but surely expand, and survey says... the solar panel didn't fly off, so I think we're good. Now we have so much more room for activities on our Kerbal International Space Station. Oh, look, there's clearance. Yes, look at all the clearance we've got. We do have clearance underneath that. There's just barely enough room. Wow. I'm even more impressed that we did that, and the logo is nice and on the side. That is successful right there, chat. What do y'all think about that? We've expanded the Expandable Activity Module, or the Expandable Recreation Bubble. We could actually put Kerbals in it now. Let me see if I can grab a Kerbal here. And we will transfer Addilol Kerbal over here to go check out the beam, or the curb. And we should be able to see Addilol's interior overlay. There we go. So Rover Dude made a little interior, or internal vehicle activity view for us here, and we can actually see the inside. Now, clearly this doesn't represent what the inside of the actual beam on the real International Space Station looks like. Our Kerbals have little seats, and they just sit on the side and have snacks with each other, I guess. That is very cool. That is very cool. What do you think, chat? Good times. I don't think that we have any time for really last questions. I think we asked a lot of good questions. Bigelow, did y'all have fun?
Yeah, this was awesome. Thank you very much for having us on.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. I don't even know what I'm... Now I feel like I want to make a space station out of like 100 beams or something. Like, we'll send a mission to Duna and we'll just have beams everywhere. But again, y'all, we've been talking...
Gotta go ahead and make
Go ahead.
B330.
Make that...
Go ahead and make a B330 and you'll get a lot more volume out of it.
That's something that we can talk about. I would love to have a B330 part in KSP. Seriously. So, everyone that's watching the stream right now, I am on the phone with engineers, experts from Bigelow Aerospace. Bigelow Aerospace, the makers of the beam, the Bigelow Expandable Activity Module. It's a scientific module, or technology demonstrator module that's installed on the ISS in the real world, the International Space Station in the real world. It's been attached to the side of the space station here, and in about 2.5 weeks it's going to be expanded. It's one of the first human interaction expandable modules on the space station. What we're trying to do, we're trying to learn about expandable technologies, how we can send things to space and then expand them so that we get more space once they're in space, right? It's lighter weight. It's less volume. We can launch it for cheaper because we need smaller rockets to launch that sort of stuff. Just the entire expandable things. I bet you if you ever stay at like an orbital Hilton or something along those times, it's going to be made of an expandable sort of structure like this, as opposed to build the orbital Hilton on the ground, put it on top of a big crazy looking rocket and launch it like we do in KSP. But we've been talking about in KSP, if we want to get this amount of usable space, like the hitchhiker container, typically we'd have to carry that hitchhiker up. It weighs 2.5 tons, and it has to have a rocket that's about this big. Did I say, oh man, what, did I mess it up? I'm doing like the outro. How could I mess it up now? They're saying that I said inflate. Rude. Maybe I did, I don't know. Normally in KSP, in stock KSP, we have to send up that hitchhiker that's that big when it's on the ground, and it's that big when it's in space. With the Kerbal Expandable Recreation Bubble, or the beam, the Bigelow Expandable Activity Module, we can actually send up a little package, like we did in the Trunk of the Dragon. We can give it the command to expand, and then we get all this extra room for activities. That's what we've been talking about. That's the mission that we've been kind of simulating here. While the experts from Bigelow Aerospace hung out with us, watched me wave the Canadarm around, and watched me finally actually get that thing integrated, attached to the correct place on the station, and successfully expanded there. Ah, yes. Bigelow, thank y'all for joining me. This was a fantastic time. A lot of practice. I was a little bit nervous because I'm slapping against solar panels and stuff like that. But I really do appreciate you guys taking time out of your schedule. I know it's the work day for y'all. Thank you so much for coming over here and answering some questions for us. Telling us some cool space stuff, and in general just enjoying our video game Kerbal Space Program, and helping us learn about what y'all are doing.
It was awesome. Thank you very much, and great job on getting beam up there and expanded.
You know, I have another I have another version of my ISS that already has the beam installed, just in case.
Welcome to
wow,
the
that
Academy.
was loud. Just in case this mission went off the rails, I could switch to the other station that already had the beam in the right place, so we could expand it and kind of like do some hand wavium and finish it. But I really did have a lot of fun hanging out with y'all. Thank y'all so much for joining us. Chat, say some love in chat over there for the Bigelow Aerospace team. Tell them that you appreciate them spending time with us here. And guys, when you take, we were playing video games here. I do appreciate you taking us seriously. We love communicating about the space topics and stuff like that with maybe people who love space but just don't know it yet. The video game people, the people that watch the streams online. It seems like everybody that I ever talk to loves space. We just have to show them that they love space. They don't know how cool it is sometimes. Look, there goes chat with the thanks to the Beam team. I really do appreciate y'all.
All right, we're gonna take a second to plug ourselves. If you guys want to follow us or are interested in what we're doing, we're on Twitter, Facebook, and of course our website, so you can learn more about us.
And Instagram as well.
And Instagram,
yeah, we're
Instagram.
at Bigelow Space.
Yeah, I think that's all. Let's see here. If we have the Bigelow main website, yeah, if we just go to bigelowaerospace.com, I know in the upper right-hand corner there, and I'll spam that link into chat, you've got your Twitter on there, which is at Bigelow Space, right? You've got your Instagram. You've got a Facebook page. All those links are really easy to get to if y'all just go to bigelowaerospace.com that I just spammed into chat. Continue with the pluggings.
No, that was it. I mean, we're super excited about, you know, our technology and the future of what we're doing. So we love talking to people about it, and yeah, we hope to do more stuff like this in the future.
And thanks everybody for being fans of space. This is really exciting for us.
Excellent, excellent. I'm like clicking around the website right now. There's information on the 330 and the beams. And if there's any aspiring aerospace engineers out there, they've actually got a career tabs as well. When we did the show with ULA, all of a sudden I had a couple of viewers write into me and saying, "Whoa, I didn't know that they were doing that," and they sent in resumes to ULA. So if you're graduating from college or something like that, you're looking for careers, they do have a career link on their site as well. So the website's getting hammered. Did we just break the website? Wait, I think we might have just broke your website by posting it in chat for 1,000. The site just died. Oh no. Bigelow,
That's awesome. That's awesome.
I think we've sent enough traffic to your site to crash it. I apologize for that. I mean, I don't apologize for that. Anyways, thank y'all so much for joining us. I'll go ahead and let y'all go. I know y'all have exciting real-world space things to go on. I'm actually going to click around the website here. I saw y'all had some full-size mock-ups, like that you can actually walk through and stuff. And I want to like look at the. It says error establishing a database connection. We broke your website, Bigelow. I apologize. Oh, the Twitch DDoS strikes again. Oh no. But I do appreciate you guys. I know I've said that a lot, and I will let you go. Thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye. Have a great day.
All right. Have a good day. Wow, chat. Wow, chat. Bigelow is off the line now. That was a lot of